The lights were too bright. She could barely see the audience, but she could hear them. Thousands of people clapping. Her name was shining on a giant screen behind her. Big, bold, impossible to ignore. For a moment, she just stood there, frozen. Because once, that same name was whispered in a very different way. Useless. That was the word they used. A teacher said it. A relative repeated it. Even someone in her own family believed it. Useless. And now the world knew her name. How did a girl who couldn't answer a simple question in class become the woman standing on this stage? How did someone who believed she had no talent find the strength to change her life? Tonight, I will tell you her story. And maybe in her story, you will see a part of yourself. Welcome to English Speakcast. Let's learn English through a powerful story. She was born in a small house at the end of a narrow street. Not the kind of house people admired. The paint was old, the roof made noise when it rained, but inside there was warmth. Her father worked long hours in a small workshop. Her mother stayed home and tried to save every coin. Life was simple, sometimes difficult, always quiet. And she was the quietest of all. While other children ran outside and shouted in the street, she preferred to sit by the window. She liked watching the sky. She liked drawing shapes on old pieces of paper. She liked thinking. But thinking does not make noise, and in her world, silence looked like weakness. In school, she sat in the back row, not because the teacher told her to, but because she chose it. When the teacher asked questions, hands went up quickly, confident hands, loud voices. Her hand never moved. It wasn't that she didn't try. Sometimes she knew the answer. Sometimes she almost raised her hand, but fear was faster. What if I'm wrong? What if they laugh? What if I say it badly? So she stayed silent. Report cards came every term. Her grades were average, not terrible, not impressive. At home, relatives often visited. Her cousin got first place again, someone would say. Look at her sister, so smart. She is too slow. They didn't whisper. They didn't think she could hear, but she heard everything. One afternoon after school, she brought home a math test. She had made mistakes. Many mistakes. Her father looked tired that day. He scanned the paper quickly. "What is this?" he asked. She said nothing. "You don't understand simple things. Why are you like this?" His voice was not cruel. It was frustrated, heavy. And then it happened. He shook his head and said softly, almost to himself, "Sometimes I think you are just useless." The word entered the room quietly, but inside her heart it was loud. Useless. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just stood there, holding the paper
in her small hands. That night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not good at anything. Maybe I'm just nothing special. And that was the first time the word began to live inside her, not as a sound, but as a belief. The classroom was loud that morning. Chairs moved, books opened, students laughed. She sat in her usual seat at the back. Her notebook was open. Her pen was ready. She told herself, today will be normal. Just stay quiet. Just survive. The teacher walked in with a serious face. Today, he said, we will check who actually studied. Her heart started beating faster. He began asking questions, easy ones at first. The smart students answered quickly. The teacher smiled at them. Then his eyes moved across the room, slowly, and stopped. "Stand up," he said. She froze. He called her name again, louder this time. Her legs felt weak as she stood. Every eye in the room turned toward her. "Tell me the answer to question number 5. She looked at the board. The numbers looked strange. Her mind went blank. She had studied. She had tried. But in that moment, nothing was there. I don't know," she whispered. "What?" the teacher said sharply. "Speak louder." "I don't know." A few students giggled. Someone in the front row laughed openly. The teacher sighed deeply. "This is very simple," he said. "Even a child could answer this." More laughter. She felt her face burn. Her hands were shaking.
"You never participate," the teacher continued. "You never answer. What do you even do at home?" Silence. "Sit down," he said finally. "Sometimes I wonder why you even come to school." The class laughed again. She sat down slowly. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavy. She stared at her notebook, but she could not see the words. "Why do I even come to school?" The question repeated inside her mind. She wanted to disappear, to become invisible. After class, 2 girls walked past her. "She's so dumb," one of them said. "Yeah," the other replied, "totally useless." That word again, useless. It followed her down the hallway. It followed her onto the bus. It followed her all the way home. That night, she did not open her books. She just sat on her bed, staring at the wall. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong here. And for the first time, she started to believe it completely. At home, silence was never really silent. It was filled with comparisons. Her older brother was good at everything. Good grades, good at sports, confident voice. When guests visited, they always asked about him first. "How is your son doing? He will go far in life. He is the pride of the family." Then their eyes slowly turned to her. "And what about her?" Her mother would smile politely. "She is trying." Trying. It was a small word, but it sounded weak. At dinner, her brother talked about his achievements. Her father listened carefully. He gave advice. He asked questions. When she tried to speak, her voice felt small. Sometimes no one noticed, sometimes they did. "You need to be more like your brother," an aunt once said. "Look at him, so confident, so capable." She kept eating quietly. "I don't know what she will do in the future," another relative said one evening. "She doesn't seem to have any talent."
They thought she was not listening, but she was. Every word entered her heart like a small stone, not heavy enough to break her, but heavy enough to hurt. One night, she walked past the living room and heard her parents talking. "I'm worried about her," her mother said softly. "She doesn't speak much. She doesn't shine like the others." Her father sighed. "If she doesn't change, she will never succeed." The sentence felt like a door closing. She stood in the dark hallway, holding her breath. Never succeed. She walked back to her room slowly, closed the door, sat on the floor. Maybe I am a disappointment. Maybe I am the problem. She looked at herself in the mirror on her desk. A quiet girl, small voice, tired eyes. She tried to imagine a future, but every image was blurry. The pressure did not come from shouting, it came from doubt. And doubt is quiet, but powerful. That night, she whispered something to herself. "I'm sorry." She didn't even know who she was apologizing to, her parents, her teachers, or herself. The word useless was no longer just something others said. It had become her own voice. The final exams were coming. Everyone in school talked about them. "These grades will decide your future," the teachers said. "Work hard now or regret later." The pressure felt heavier than ever. This time, she promised herself something. "I will not fail again. I will prove them wrong." For weeks, she studied late at night. While the house was quiet, she sat at her small desk, reading, writing, trying to understand. Sometimes she didn't fully understand the lessons, but she kept going. Her eyes burned, her head hurt, but she kept going. The exam day arrived. She walked into the classroom with shaking hands. Her heart beat loudly in her chest. When the papers were handed out, she took a deep breath. She tried. She really tried. But some questions felt unfamiliar. Some answers didn't come easily. Time moved too fast. When the bell rang, her hands were cold. Days later, the results were posted on the school board. Students crowded around it. Excited voices, nervous laughter. She moved slowly through the crowd. Her eyes searched for her name, and then she found it. Below average, again. Not the worst, but far from good. Someone behind her whispered, "I knew she wouldn't do well." Another voice said, "She just doesn't have it." The words felt sharper this time. At home, her father looked at the result sheet in silence. "I don't understand," he said finally. "We gave you everything." Her mother didn't speak. She just looked disappointed. That look hurt more than any word. That night, she locked her bedroom door. For the first time, she cried loudly. Not small tears, not silent tears. She cried with pain, with anger, with shame. "I'm useless," she said to herself. "I try, and I still fail." She sat on the floor, hugging her knees. Maybe this is who I am.
Maybe I will always be behind. Maybe I should stop trying. The word useless no longer hurt. It felt true. And that was the most dangerous part. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling again, just like she did years ago. But this time, something inside her felt broken. She had reached her lowest point. And when someone reaches the bottom, there are only two choices: stay there or rise. That night felt different. Not louder, not dramatic, just still. The house was asleep. The lights were off. Only a small lamp glowed in her room. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her desk was messy with books she no longer wanted to open.
She stood up slowly and walked to the mirror. For a long moment, she just looked at herself. No teacher, no parents, no classmates. Just her. "You are useless," the voice inside whispered. She almost nodded, but something stopped her. She leaned closer to the mirror. "Am I?" she asked softly. The question felt strange. She had never questioned the word before. She had only accepted it. Her eyes moved to the corner of her desk. There, under a pile of books, was an old notebook. A small blue notebook from years ago. She picked it up. Inside were childish drawings, little stories she had written when she was younger. Dreams written in simple words. "I want to stand on a stage one day. I want people to listen to me. I want to do something important." She had forgotten this girl. The girl who dreamed, the girl who believed. When did she disappear? She sat on her bed, holding the notebook. Maybe I'm not useless. Maybe I just haven't found my way yet. The thought was small, very small. It wasn't confidence. It wasn't strength. It was just a question. What if they're wrong? Her heart beat a little differently. Not faster, but steadier. She wiped her tears. For the first time in a long time, she did not feel angry. She felt curious. Maybe I failed because I don't know how to learn. Maybe I was afraid. Maybe I gave up too soon. The word useless suddenly felt less powerful. Not gone, but weaker. She opened her window slightly. Cool night air entered the room. She took a deep breath. "I don't want to stay like this," she whispered. That sentence was quiet, but it was the beginning of everything. The next morning, nothing looked different. The same house, the same narrow street, the same people. But inside her, something had shifted. It wasn't confidence. It wasn't courage. It was a decision. She woke up 1 hour earlier than usual. The sky was still gray. The world was quiet. She sat at her desk and opened her math book. Her heart felt nervous. What if I still don't understand? But this time, she didn't close the book. She read 1 page, slowly. When she didn't understand something, she didn't say, "I'm stupid." She said, "Let me try again." It felt strange. Her mind wanted to return to the old voice, the voice that said, "You can't do this."
But she kept reading. 30 minutes passed. She solved one problem correctly, just one. It wasn't a big victory. No one clapped, no one noticed. But she smiled slightly. After school, while others watched TV or scrolled on their phones, she went to her room. She closed the door, not to cry this time, to practice. She made a simple plan in her old blue notebook. Wake up early, study 1 hour, practice speaking in front of mirror, review mistakes, try again. The plan was small, but it was hers. Days passed. She followed the routine quietly. Sometimes she felt tired, sometimes she felt frustrated, but she did not stop. No one praised her. In fact, one evening her brother laughed when he saw her studying again. "Why are you trying so hard?" he asked. "It won't change anything." She didn't argue. She just smiled softly and returned to her book. Because this time she wasn't studying to impress anyone. She was studying to prove something to herself. Each morning, the sky slowly became brighter, and little by little, so did she. 3 months passed. Her routine became normal. Wake up early, study quietly, practice speaking in front of the mirror, review mistakes, try again. She was improving, slowly, but improvement is quiet, and results take time. Then another test came. This time she did not feel as afraid. She had prepared. She had practiced. "I will do better," she told herself. During the exam, she felt more focused. Some questions were easier now. She understood things she didn't understand before. When the results came out, her hands did not shake like before. She looked at the board. Her score was higher, but not high enough. Still not near the top. Still not impressive. A group of students stood nearby. "She studied so much," one girl said, "and still average." Another shrugged. "Some people just can't change." The words reached her ears. They hurt. Of course they hurt. But something inside her was different this time. She did not feel broken. She did not feel like crying. She looked at her score again. It's better than before. That was the truth. Not perfect, not amazing, but better. At home, her father glanced at the result. He said, "A little better." Just a little. No smile, no praise. In the past, that reaction would have destroyed her. This time, she nodded. "Yes," she said quietly, "a little better." That night, she opened her notebook again. Instead of writing, "I'm useless," she wrote, "Improvement plus 12 marks." She circled it. Then she wrote, "Next goal plus 10 more." No drama, no tears, just a plan. Later, while brushing her teeth, she looked at herself in the mirror again. "You're not there yet," she whispered, "but you're not where you were." For the first time, she felt something new. Not confidence, not pride, respect. She was beginning to respect herself. Failure still came, but it no longer defined her. Now it became a teacher, and that changed everything.
It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. No special music, no dramatic moment. Just a normal school day. The teacher entered the classroom with a stack of papers. "Today," he said, "I will return your essays." Her heart beat a little faster. Writing had always been her secret love. She never told anyone, but every night after studying, She wrote small paragraphs in her blue notebook. Simple thoughts, simple stories, feelings she could not say out loud. When the teacher called her name, she walked to the front quietly. He handed her the paper. She expected average. She expected nothing special. But at the top of the page, she saw something unusual. A high score, higher than most students. She blinked. Maybe she was reading it wrong. Then she noticed a small comment written in red ink. Very thoughtful. Keep writing. Her fingers trembled slightly. The teacher looked at her for a second longer than usual. "This was good," he said calmly. "You have improvement." Improvement. Not useless, not disappointing. Improvement. She returned to her seat slowly. The girl next to her leaned over. "What did you get?" she asked. When she saw the score, her eyebrows lifted. "Oh, that's actually good." Actually good. It wasn't applause. It wasn't a big prize. But inside her chest, something warm began to grow. That afternoon, something even more unexpected happened. The teacher announced a small writing competition for the school magazine. "Anyone who wants to participate can submit a story," he said. Her heart whispered, "Try." Her fear whispered, "Don't embarrass yourself." For a moment, she almost stayed silent. Then she slowly raised her hand. The movement felt heavy, but she did it. Some students turned to look at her. She ignored them. That night, she wrote for hours. She wrote about a girl who felt invisible. She wrote about doubt, about pain, about hope. A week later, the results were announced. 3rd place. Her name was printed in the school magazine. Small letters, small achievement. But when she held that magazine in her hands, she felt something powerful. She wasn't the best, but she was no longer invisible. And for the first time, someone said to her directly, "I'm proud of you." It was her mother. Soft voice, gentle smile. And that small sentence felt bigger than any trophy. Change did not arrive loudly. It came quietly, just like she always had. People did not suddenly praise her. They did not apologize for the past. But their tone changed. In class, when the teacher asked a question, his eyes sometimes moved toward her, not with doubt, with expectation. Once she raised her hand. Her heart beat fast, but her voice did not shake. Her answer was correct. The teacher nodded. "Good," he said. Just one word, but it stayed with her all day. At home, her parents noticed small things. She woke up early. She studied without being told. She spoke a little more at dinner. Her father no longer sighed when he saw her books. One evening he asked, "What are you studying these days?" It was the first time he had asked in years. Relatives still compared, but their voices were softer. "She's improving," someone said. "She seems more focused now." No one said useless anymore. The word slowly disappeared from conversations. But inside her, it was still there, quiet, waiting. Some nights fear returned. What if this is temporary? What if I fail again? She still felt small in crowded rooms, still doubted herself before speaking. But she kept going. She understood something important now. Confidence does not come first. Action does. So she worked, quietly, consistently. She did not chase praise. She chased progress. And progress was changing her. Not just her grades, not just her skills. Her posture changed. Her eyes looked forward more often. She still sat in the back of the class, but she no longer felt like she belonged there. Something bigger was waiting. She could feel it. And even though fear still walked beside her, it no longer led the way. The announcement came on a rainy afternoon. The principal entered the classroom with a serious expression. "There is a national scholarship exam next month," he said. "Only 2 students from our school can participate." The room became silent. This was not a small competition. This was important. The scholarship meant everything: better education, recognition, a real future. "We will choose students based on improvement and effort," the principal continued. Improvement, effort. Her heart began to pound. For years, she had been invisible. Now, she had improved. But was it enough? A week later, the selected names were posted outside the office. Students crowded around the list. Her hands felt cold as she walked closer. She told herself not to hope too much. Hope can hurt. She looked at the paper. First name, a top student, no surprise. Her eyes moved down. Second name. She stopped breathing. It was hers. For a second, the world felt quiet. Someone behind her said, "Really? Her?" Another voice replied, "She improved a lot." She stepped back slowly. This was real. That evening, her father read the letter carefully. "A national exam?" he said. His voice sounded different, not frustrated, not doubtful, proud. Her mother smiled softly. "You worked hard," she said. But with the opportunity came fear. The exam would be difficult. Students from the best schools would compete. What if she failed publicly? What if this chance proved everyone right again? That night, she opened her blue notebook. Instead of writing goals, she wrote one question. "Do I believe I deserve this?" She stared at the words. She didn't know the answer yet, but she knew one thing. This was not just an exam. This was a test of who she had become. And for the first time in her life, she was standing at the edge of something big. The exam hall was larger than any classroom she had ever seen. Rows and rows of desks, bright white lights above, students from different schools whispering confidently. Some looked calm, some looked brilliant, some looked like they had never failed at anything in their lives. She sat down at her assigned desk. Her hands rested on the table. They were steady, but inside, a storm was building. This is it. Years of doubt, months of discipline, countless quiet mornings, all leading to this moment. The supervisor placed the paper in front of her. "Begin." She turned the first page. The questions were difficult, harder than school exams, designed to test not just memory, but thinking. Her chest tightened. For a second, the old voice returned. "You don't belong here. You're not smart enough. This was a mistake." Her fingers froze. Then suddenly, another voice spoke. "You have prepared. You improved. You earned this seat." She closed her eyes for 1 second, and she remembered. The classroom laughter, the word useless, the tears on her bedroom floor, the small blue notebook, the early mornings, the first improvement.
her mother saying, "I'm proud of you." She opened her eyes and began.
One question at a time. Not perfectly, not quickly, but calmly. When she didn't know an answer, she didn't panic. She skipped it. She returned later. Time moved fast, but she stayed focused. At the final minute, she placed her pen down. She had done everything she could. No more, no less. As she walked out of the hall, students around her discussed answers loudly. She didn't join them. She didn't need to. For the first time in her life, she didn't measure herself against others. She measured herself against who she used to be. And she knew something deep inside. No matter the result, she was no longer the girl who believed she was useless. But the result was still coming, and it would change everything. The results were announced 2 weeks later. The entire school gathered in the main hall. Students whispered. Teachers stood near the stage. The principal held a single envelope in his hand. Her heart beat slowly, not wildly like before, just steady. She stood in the crowd, not at the front. Old habits still lived inside her. The principal adjusted the microphone. "We are very proud today," he began. "One of our students has achieved a national scholarship." The room became silent. She felt her palms grow warm. "This student," he continued, "showed remarkable improvement, discipline, and determination." Improvement, that word again. He opened the envelope. For the first time in our school's history, a pause. Her chest tightened. "The scholarship winner is..." Her name. For a second, she didn't move. It felt unreal. Then the hall exploded with applause. Students clapped. Teachers smiled. Some looked surprised. Her name echoed through the speakers. The same name that once had been followed by laughter, by whispers, by the word useless. Now it was followed by applause. She walked toward the stage slowly. The lights felt bright, just like in that moment we saw at the beginning. She remembered standing in class, unable to answer a simple question. She remembered crying on her bedroom floor. And now she stood on a stage. The principal handed her the certificate. "Well done," he said. Her hands trembled slightly as she accepted it. She looked at the audience. Some students who once laughed at her were clapping. Her teachers were smiling proudly. In the front row, she saw her parents. Her mother was wiping tears. Her father's eyes were shining. The applause continued. But inside her, there was something even louder. A quiet truth. I was never useless. I was just becoming. And in that moment, she understood. The world did not suddenly know her name. She had simply decided to believe in it first. The next few days felt strange. People who once ignored her were suddenly noticing her. In the hallway, students smiled at her. "Congratulations," they said. Some sounded genuine. Some sounded surprised. One of the girls who had laughed at her months ago approached her quietly. "You worked really hard," she admitted. "I didn't expect this." She simply nodded, not with pride, not with anger, just calm. In class, the teacher who once embarrassed her now used her story as an example.
"This is what effort looks like," he said. "Never underestimate improvement." The word useless was never mentioned again. At home, relatives came to visit, but this time the conversations were different. She made the family proud. She proved everyone wrong. She was always special. Always special. She almost smiled at that. Her father placed the scholarship letter carefully in a frame. Her mother kept telling neighbors the story. But the biggest reaction was not outside, it was inside. For years, she had carried a heavy word. Now it felt like someone had lifted it away. The label that once defined her was gone, not because people stopped saying it, but because she stopped believing it. The world had changed its opinion, but the real victory was this: she had changed her own.
That night, after the celebrations ended, she sat alone in her room. The house was quiet again. The framed certificate rested on her desk. The scholarship letter lay beside it. She didn't touch them. Instead, she picked up the small blue notebook. The same notebook that had held her doubts, her goals, her tiny improvements. She flipped through the pages slowly. Plus 12 marks. Next goal, plus 10. Wake up early. Try again. She smiled softly. No one had seen these pages. No one had applauded those mornings. The real victory had happened here, in silence. She walked to the mirror again. This time, the girl looking back at her seemed different. Not perfect, not fearless, but stronger. "I forgive you," she whispered. She wasn't sure who she meant at first. The teacher? Her father? The classmates? Then she understood. She was forgiving herself for believing the word, for doubting, for almost giving up. Tears filled her eyes, but they were calm tears, peaceful. She realized something important. Pain had shaped her. Humiliation had built her discipline. Doubt had forced her to grow. If no one had called her useless, would she have worked this hard? Maybe not. The word that once tried to break her had quietly built her. She sat by the window and looked out at the night sky. The same sky she used to watch as a little girl. Back then, she felt small under it. Now, she felt possible. Success did not erase her past. It gave it meaning. And for the first time in her life, she felt proud. Not because she won, but because she refused to stop. Years later, she would still remember that little girl. The quiet one in the back of the classroom. The girl who stared at her notebook, afraid to speak. The girl who believed every negative word. Sometimes she closed her eyes and imagined sitting beside her younger self. What would she say? Not a long speech, not complicated advice, just something simple. You are not useless. She would tell her, they are speaking from their limits, not yours. You are growing even when no one sees it. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. She would remind her of the early mornings, the small improvements, the courage to raise her hand once. Because life did not change in one big moment. It changed in quiet decisions. One page read, one question answered, one more try after failure. If she could hold that little girl's hand, she would smile and say, "One day your name will be called with pride, not because you were perfect, but because you refused to believe you were nothing." And maybe that is true for you too.
So now, let me ask you something. Has anyone ever called you useless? Maybe not with that exact word. Maybe they said, "You're not smart. You're too slow. You will never succeed." Words can stay in the heart for years. But here is the truth her life teaches us. A word is only powerful if you decide to believe it. She was not special at the beginning. She was not the best. She was not confident. She was just a girl who decided to try again, and again, and again. If someone calls you useless, don't fight them with anger. Fight them with quiet improvement. Wake up a little earlier. Practice a little longer. Believe a little stronger. One day, the same world that doubted you may speak your name with respect. And even if they don't, you will know who you are. Thank you for listening to this story on English Speakcast. Stay with us. Keep learning English. Keep growing through stories, because maybe the world is still waiting to hear your name.